All right, learning objective 4, discuss the election of 1876 and the compromise of 1877 and show how this compromise brought an end to political reconstruction and ushered in phase 3, redemption of Reconstruction. So, election of 1876, it's all but certain that the Republicans are going to lose, but wait, there'll be a compromise. Grant's presidency, although he was a great military leader, he turned out to be a very flawed president. His presidency was rife with corruption charges. He had an alcohol abuse problem. He would have been deemed an alcoholic today. That term didn't exist back then. But his presidency greatly tarnished the Republican Party. So the Republicans were going to put up a guy named Rutherford B. Hayes. The Democrats, running on the spirit of reform, were nominated Samuel J. Tilden. And the election was on its way of 1876. And it was, despite the problems of the Republican Party, it was remarkably close with the electoral votes swaying towards the Democratic Party. However, there seemed to be a problem. Tilden only had 184 electoral votes. He needed 185. There were about 3 states still at play, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana. And instead of allowing this to lead to tensions, Congress suggested that they come up with a committee of 15, another committee of 15, to look to decide who should be the next president and to come up with a compromise for the direction of the country. So out of this,
you get the so-called Compromise of 1877. Now, the Republican candidate Hayes is going to win the presidency, very controversial, and it looks like, wow, the Republican Party is victorious. But the South gets quite a bit out of this compromise. First and foremost, military reconstruction is over, and no possibility of ever coming back. They will get home rule. And the South was promised that they would be able to solve their so-called Negro problems. Now let's talk about this for a little bit, because this compromise is going to lead to major problems throughout U.S. history, right to this day. But a lot of these things will not be addressed until the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. So out of this, what begins to happen out of this part of the compromise, and we'll look at the other parts of the compromise in just a little bit, but out of this, you get to have you begin to see local and state governments begin to introduce what becomes known as Jim Crow laws or segregation laws. So this is where we begin to see the races being formally separated in public venues, beginning with railroads. And then schools, water fountains, pools, later movie theaters, all of these things, separation of the races, segregation. You also begin to see dismantling of the 14th Amendment with poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses, right, in order to prevent non-white people from voting in future elections, basically reestablishing white supremacy. And this would be affirmed by the federal government through the Supreme Court, first with a very famous case called Plessy versus Ferguson of 1896, where Homer Plessy first sued Louisiana for denying him passage on a on first class on a railroad car. The interesting thing about Homer Plessy is this. Take a look. Here's Homer Plessy, the black man who wanted to ride the railroad car. Wait, wrong slide. Nope, that's the right one. Yeah, this is a this is what Homer Plessy was. What was considered a octoroon. He was 1/8 black. I have no idea what that means. But anyway, that's enough. It's the whole idea of one drop of non-white blood and you ain't white kind of idea. So he was kind of a Rosa Parks of his times. He purposely wanted to get arrested, and he felt that his face, a person who obviously is white, would show the hypocrisy of segregation laws in 1896. Here's how the press depicted him. Right, that's Homer Plessy according to the press in newspapers. This is a very, very interesting picture because here you have Homer Plessy. This is obviously not an accurate depiction of him. He is incredibly black here. And in the background, you have some interesting things going on. Well, first let's look at him. Like, very well-dressed African-American, nice little pillow to keep his arm comfortable in the first-class ticket. Obviously not a proper place for a second-class citizen within the United States. This guy right here is pretty pissed off that there's a black man in the first-class ticket. What's interesting is a person looking like this also probably would not be have a first-class ticket as well. This guy is kind of a stereotypical Irish guy, and this was a very clever thing for the artist to put in because Irish and black folks were basically the bottom rungs of the social, economic, and political parts of the ladder within the United States, with Irish just slightly above black folks at this time. And so they were vying for acceptance quite a bit, and vying a lot for job competition as well. And so you have this Irish guy getting very angry. And then back here, quite interesting, you have this white woman who cannot keep her eyes off of this dapper black guy, right? And what's even more horrifying is this is a mother, right? She can't even control herself with her baby in her arms. And this is playing into this whole racial taboo that white women and black men, just, you got to watch it when they're around each other because they start losing all of their senses. So this case that we've all heard of, this is the whole separate but equal doctrine, validated basically the constitutionality of Jim Crow laws throughout the South, segregation laws. Jim Crow laws, segregation laws, the same thing. Right. The other case that was introduced was the that was a result of this compromise where the South would be able to control their Negro problem, as they put it. Was the 1898 case, William versus Mississippi, which was a Supreme Court case that validated literacy tests, which were quite interesting. So, Hayes, what the South also got out of this was that they were promised, the Democrats were promised that they would get a key spot in the president's cabinet, and they got David Key of Tennessee as Postmaster General. Also, and a very biggie, was that Hayes would support the South's effort to rebuild its railroads after the devastation of the Civil War, which was imperative to its economic survival. All right, so that concludes Learning Objective 4. Learning Objective 5 requires you to read Howard Zinn's A People's History, his chapter 9, which is posted within this lecture series, Slavery Without Submission, Emancipation Without Freedom. And in here you're to show how promises and the hope for integrating African Americans into American society failed by utilizing Chapter 9's readings. So do let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I will see you in the next lecture series.